If the NFL played in a March Madness tournament, which offenses would lead their team to make the Sweet 16, Elite 8, and Final Four? We make our bracket to determine the top 2026 fantasy offenses on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Fantasy Football, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcasting network. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. When I'm not doing this, I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com.
Today, we're going to do a fun little exercise. We have March Madness coming up this week. We just had the bracket and all the teams officially in on Sunday for college March Madness for both the men's and women's. But for today, we're going to act like the NFL does a little March Madness tournament, and we're going to do it with their fantasy offenses. So first up, we will select the 16 top teams that we think will be top fantasy offenses to make the Sweet 16. We'll dwindle it down to the Elite 8 and then the Final Four. And then we'll give you our final predictor on who we think will be the best fantasy team in 2026. Let's start with the Sweet 16. And to keep this, a little bit easier here, we're going to name 12 teams that we're just saying they would get into the tournament, right? And then we're going to come up with our 4 bubble teams here together. So those 12 teams right off the bat: Rams, Lions, Cowboys, Bengals, Bills, Patriots, Bears, 49ers, Ravens, Eagles, Chargers, and the Falcons, right? We're going to say we're pretty confident they can be good offenses this upcoming year. Now, we got to pick, though, of the remaining teams, who are the 4 remaining bubble teams we want to make this tournament.
Yeah, there's some good candidates you look at. I mean, let's go down some line here. We got the Chiefs. You got the Buccaneers, the Giants, the Jaguars, the Colts, the Vikings, the Saints, Cardinals, Seahawks, Packers, Texans, Commanders, Broncos, and Steelers. So let's start with 2 teams that stand out for recent developments. The Giants. They now have Isaiah Likely in the mix at tight end. He's a pretty good dynamic receiver. Cam Skattebo and Malik Nabers seem to be on the mend. Jackson Dart is looking like a top 6 QB in fantasy. They could go get a rookie with some impact at wide receiver as well. I think we got to put them in, Michelle. What do you think? That's my first team in, I think.
Absolutely. I'm a big fan of this Giants offense. I've been talking up Jackson Dart all offseason long. I'm going to keep doing it. So not only do I think Dart will have a big year, but then also the rest of these playmakers. So the Giants are definitely in there. Now, do we want to put the Chiefs in there, not knowing about Mahomes, not knowing about Rashee Rice, not knowing what we're going to get out of Travis Kelce? They weren't a top 16 fantasy offense this past year, or if they were, they just got there. I'll have to double check that. But are you willing to put them into the 6? No, they were 17th last year in terms of fantasy offense. So are you going to put them in there for 2026?
I think because of Mahomes' injury, we got to take them out, I think. And there's some other teams that will have more stability here as we go forward. I think one team you definitely look at that has that, to me, the Jaguars. Even without Travis Etienne, you have Trevor Lawrence, you got the weapons. Brian Thomas, we'll see what happens with him, but you already have the receivers there in Jacoby Myers. And what else they can do on this team. I think they'll add a tight end, so they'll get better. So I think you got to put in the Jaguars after Trevor Lawrence's breakout season. You also have a very good play caller, Liam Combs. I think the Jaguars, to me, would have more appeal overall than the Chiefs at this point.
I agree. The Jaguars over the Chiefs, but there's some concerns with the Jaguars. And I think losing Travis Etienne is a huge piece of this fantasy offense, and they did not replace him with a running back, but they're still in a running for sure to make the bubble. But would you say the Buccaneers or the Jaguars? The Buccaneers, maybe Baker Mayfield bounces back. I know they lost Mike Evans, but they still have Emeka Egbuka, who looked so good the first half of his rookie season, right? And then they have Bucky Irving, and they have Sean Tucker, and now they have Kenneth Gainwell. They still have Cade Otton, who's not a great fantasy tight end, but puts up a little bit of numbers there. Jalen McMillan, right? They have other options. Chris Godwin. Do you like the Buccaneers or Jaguars more to be a top 16 fantasy offense?
I think the tiebreaker, it might be the quarterback, right? I mean, who now do you feel a little bit better about? I mean, if you asked this question maybe last year, you would have said Baker Mayfield or Trevor Lawrence. Where are you going, Lawrence or Mayfield? And I think that would be our tiebreaker at this point because I think Bashal Tutin is going to be fine. Like, I think they'll find a way for him to produce, and at least it's a one back thing that you could consider. So, again, I think they have a little bit more receiving depth if they add a tight end. I mean, one of these teams could actually get Kenny and Sadiq in the draft, and that could change things. But right now, I think it has to be who's got the more draftable quarterback in your mind.
Okay. I'm not as high in Trevor Lawrence as you, but I will put in the Jaguars. They officially made it into the top 16. We have 2 more bubble teams that we need to pick, and I think one that we should consider is the Vikings now that they have Kyler Murray, because if Justin Jefferson comes back to life, then this offense could be very exciting again, right? And we both think he can come back to life and should come back to life with Kyler Murray in the backfield as a new starting quarterback. Murray should be able to put up fantasy points. We don't love Jordan Addison, but still, he's going to put up some numbers. And then they have TJ Hawkinson. Maybe he could be better with Murray. I think the one thing really lacking there is the backfield, but it's not like the worst backfield ever with Aaron Jones and Jordan Mason. But I think the Vikings should be considered.
I think that's fair. I mean, Kyler Murray, we can call them if things work out. If they get hot, they could get hot here in the offseason. If Kyler Murray takes the job and he wins it convincingly, that means they're in good shape here. It's a good offensive system that has produced a lot. TJ Hawkinson always has a potential to rebound. I think this backfield can still give you some points. And again, really comes down to Addison if he's going to rebound with Jefferson, but we all think that. So they're kind of our sleeper team to dance right back into contention here. So, yeah, I'm okay bringing in the Vikings into this, especially with the upside of Murray that he brings to this offense. And yeah, we did a whole show on Murray last week, so you can hear that if you missed it. But really feeling that if he can win the starting job, the Vikings are going to have a totally different offensive outlook.
All right, so let's put the Vikings in there, and then we have to figure out this last team. And the Buccaneers are still an option, but let's say Buccaneers, Seahawks, or Packers, which maybe the Packers and Seahawks we're having too low here. But with the Packers and not knowing who's going to do what with the wide receivers, I'm losing Romeo Doubs, and
Yeah.
Jordan Love just has not been putting up fantasy production with Tucker Kraft also coming off the ACL tear. It's hard to see, like, be really confident in them being a great fantasy team next year. With the Seahawks, the biggest thing is the backfield now. Without Kenneth Walker, with Zach Charbonnet tearing his ACL, they really just have JSN. Sam Darnold didn't put up big fantasy numbers, so all that production came from JSN, and that duo backfield put up numbers. They just hurt each other, right? But without them, like, do the Seahawks make it? So who would you go with here out of the Buccaneers, Seahawks, Packers, or is there another team you want to bring up to get into this top 16?
Well, I'll bring up the Saints only because we know they're going to have a bona fide number one receiver, Chris Olave. Now they have a running back in Travis Etienne. We know they have a good play caller in Kellen Moore. Tyler Shuck is a sleeper we like. Maybe we're not totally sold on Tyler Shuck to go that way. And look, we don't have necessarily great feelings about Sam Darnold or Jordan Love as starting fantasy quarterbacks here, but we might be more excited about Tyler Shuck. I think the one other team we could bring up is the Colts. I know Daniel Jones is not exciting, but he was finishing pretty high there. They have Alec Pierce being clear number one. I know they lost Michael Pittman, but they also have Tyler Warren and one Jonathan Taylor. So they're kind of got options at all the 4 positions. So I'll just mention them. To me, I don't think the Saints are quite there yet, but I'd say the Colts could have a case between the Packers, them, Seahawks, and Buccaneers.
Yeah, I think the Saints are 1 year away from me putting them in the Sweet 16 here. The Colts are losing Michael Pittman and Daniel Jones coming off the Achilles tear and having all that hope, and Alec Pierce truly taking over as the wide receiver 1. I mean, Jonathan Taylor and Tyler Warren definitely have, make this case. Maybe the Cardinals too, maybe receiving on them is just like, what quarterback, right? Is it Jacoby Brissett? I mean, there's a lot of fantasy production actually when Jacoby Brissett was there with Michael Wilson, a little bit from Marvin Harrison Jr. You got the backfield of Tyler Algier and James Conner, but I still think I lean Buccaneers here. I think maybe you're a little too low on them, but is there a team we can agree on here for the last one? Would you rather the Colts or the Buccaneers or the Seahawks?
Well, the Buccaneers do have quite a bit of depth without Mike Evans. I'll say that. K. Dotton, for whatever he's worth, he's returning here into the mix. They still have Bucky Irving. They added Kenneth Gainwell. So I think they have the fewest question marks of all these teams. Like, they have the most depth. They have more intriguing guys all over the board. And Baker Mayfield, even though he had a down year last year, could easily rebound. So I'm okay with putting the Bucs here as the final spot. So what does that give us? We put in the Bucs, Giants, Vikings. Who's our fourth team that we're at?
We got the Giants, Jaguars, Vikings, and Buccaneers in there for our bubble
I'm good
team.
with that.
So they could still make the Elite Eight, be a surprise little Cinderella team here. We're going to dwindle down our top 16 to the Elite Eight right after we take a quick break. Workplace chaos, deadline stacking, inbox overflowing, and the one position you have to fill still sitting open. When the pressure's on and you need the right hire, this is a job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs help you reach the people who actually fit what you're doing, what you're looking for, skills, experience, location. So you're not just hoping the right candidate stumbles across your post. And here's a stat that says it all. In the minute I've been talking to you, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, spend less time searching and more time interviewing candidates who check all your boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs. Less stress, less time, more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And listeners of this show will get $75 in sponsored job credit to help get your job the premium status it deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. That's Indeed.com/podcast. Go there right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Need to hire. This is a job for Indeed sponsored jobs. I want to remind everybody that we're still running the promo that you can get the Everydayer Club for a whole month free with code March. If you sign up, and then also if you sign up before the NCAA tournament tips off this Thursday, you can compete against Vinnie and I in our men's and women's bracket pools on Discord. The winner in each will get $100 in Locked On merch, and the rest of us can commiserate in the members only chats as our brackets blow up. With the Everydayer Club, you get our show every day, Monday through Friday, ad free, access to that Discord channel and more. So head over to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com. Use that code March to get that free first month and sign up. All right, let's dwindle down our Sweet 16 to the top 8 to remind everyone who is in the Sweet 16. It's the Rams, Lions, Cowboys, Bengals, Bills, Patriots, Bears, 49ers, Ravens, Eagles, Chargers, Falcons, Giants, Jaguars, Vikings, and the Buccaneers. So we got to cut out half of these teams. Is there anyone right away where you're like, they're completely out?
All right, I guess we'll start with our 4 bubble teams. I'm trying to think. I hate to say it, but I think I need to chop the Falcons. I don't like the quarterback situation. I think you have to have a draftable quarterback if you're going to make it beyond this round. So that could be a way to eliminate some teams. But Tua Tagovailoa, Michael Penix Jr., that battle just not cutting it for me. So I would totally eliminate them from contention here. So they're the easy one for me. I think the lock teams for sure I'm going to start with are the Rams and Lions. So you can start there. I mean, they're just loaded, and they are just 2 of the overall teams that you can draft basically everything on them, and you can feel good about it. So I'm going to say Rams and Lions are safe. Let's cut out the Falcons, and that leaves room for one of our bubble teams to advance.
Yeah, and I will say I'm going to bring up a bubble team to advance. We'll hold it for a little bit here, but for sure, I really love them this year. I think like when we're looking at the bubble teams, the Buccaneers, we barely even had them in there, so they can go. I'm definitely not letting the Jaguars touch the top 8, so we're gonna let them go. I have a little bit of pushback on the Falcons. I'm okay with them not making the top 8, but I mean, even last year with pretty bad quarterback play. You saw Bijan have a monster year. You saw Drake London have a huge fantasy year. You saw Kyle Pitts have a big fantasy year. I mean, that's a top guy at each of the main positions, right, for fantasy outside of quarterback. So I'm giving them a little bit of credit here, but yeah, I doubt they'll make this top 8. Now, I think two other teams that are pretty clearly going to make the top 8. It has to be the Cowboys and the Bengals, right? You got Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, Javonte Williams. Like, you have a loaded roster there. And the Bengals, obviously, with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins and Chase Brown and Joe Burrow, they're going to make it. So we definitely have the first 4 in. I want to throw in a team that I really want to make the top 8, and that's the Chargers here. I think with Mike McDaniels, we can get excited again about Justin Herbert. Now, maybe he's not a top 10 guy, but I do think he's going to get Ladd McConkey the ball a lot. McConkey can get much better and get back to where he was as a rookie, or maybe even better than that. Aranda Gadsden was really showing something as a rookie. I love Amarian Hampton this year, right? And then you still got some outer pieces like the Quentin Johnson. So I think the Chargers should make the top 8.
Yeah, the Chargers also have the coaching brain trust we like now with Jim Harbaugh joined by Mike McDaniel. That's a pretty good combination here to get the most out of this team. I think it's a really good hire. So, yeah, I think the Chargers have to be there because Justin Herbert also could have a high upside season coming up. So they definitely have a quarterback that the Falcons do not in this scenario.
Now, one team that does have a quarterback, it's Josh Allen. But do they have enough elsewhere? I mean, even without many weapons, the Bills last year were still number 5 in terms of fantasy points produced last season in the league. They add DJ Moore. You know James Cook is going to get his numbers. You know Josh Allen's going to be amazing. And with Dalton Kincaid doing enough, I think the Bills still get into the top 8, even though we're not like overly excited about them just adding DJ Moore. We'll see if they add another wide receiver in the draft, but I still think Josh Allen's too good. James Cook is too good to not have him there.
Yeah, he has to be there. I mean, you got elite back, you got elite quarterback. DJ Moore could give them something there, and then Dalton Kincaid still could yield some results at tight end here. Now, one team that I'm struggling between the Bears and Patriots because I think the Patriots, if they had a little bit more wide receiver, I would totally be by it. I know they have Drake May. Their backfield is split. Their tight end is questionable. But now that I'm saying that, the Bears seem to have a little bit more than them at this point because they do have the tight end Colson Loveland. They've got some receiving depth even without DJ Moore with Rome Odunze and Luther Burden. We know they're both highly ranked. And, you know, your backfield has 2 options even as flex plays, DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai and Caleb Williams is the top 10. So maybe the AFC champion Patriots are out and the Bears are in for sure. So maybe that's where I'm leaning.
Yeah, I would pick the Bears over the Patriots for sure. Actually, over these few teams that we're deciding between here, there's only 2 more spots open. And right now, those spots that we have to fill, these are the available teams. The Patriots, the Bears, the 49ers, Ravens, Eagles, Giants, and Vikings. The Patriots might be at the bottom of that list or second to worst. So with the Vikings, I think we can take out with the unknown there. And I think you got to take out the Patriots here. So I'm perfectly fine with that. The Bears are definitely in contention, but do they beat out the 49ers, Ravens, and Eagles? Because I'll say my bubble team, I think deserves to make the top 8 is the Giants. I do think they're going to be a really, really fun offense this year, and they have all the pieces to be a top 8 offense. Are you willing to put the Giants into the top 8, or do you think I'm crazy?
You're not crazy. And here's what I'm looking at also. The Eagles, I think, are solid. You got the 2 wide receivers for now, plus Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts. So I think they're fine. They have to be in. The other team that I think now with Mike Evans in the mix, we'll just say George Kittle come back healthy, Christian McCaffrey, Brock Purdy, all draftable people. Now, the team that I think is a little iffy, that is surprising, is the Baltimore Ravens. They don't have anything at tight end that you would totally trust now with Mark Andrews fading. Zay Flowers is a meh, right? Like, he's a high-scoring wide receiver, but we're not excited about him. Their offense is in transition, so we'll see what they get from their new offense. I think you do have a very special asset in Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, but there are some questions beyond that team overall with depth across positions, but the Giants do not have those issues. Assuming they'll go out and get a wide receiver, this is assuming, right? If they do a little bit more, they do have their Ravens tight end, Isaiah Likely, who can make some plays, as well as Theo Johnson. So I think it might be the Giants sneaking in over the Ravens. Don't hurt yourself there, John Harbaugh, but your team might have the edge over your old team here in this bracket.
Yeah, I mean, and talking about the Giants here, I mean, they scored more fantasy points last year in 2025 than both the Ravens and the Eagles. So as teams, the Giants actually were the number 16th fantasy offense last year, while the Ravens were sitting at 21, the Eagles at 22. Do we expect both the Eagles and Ravens to be better and not so chaotic this year? Yes, on offense. But the Giants also were without Malik Nabers for most of the year, didn't have Cam Skattebo for half a year. And we think those are going to be huge pieces to these fantasy offenses. So I'm putting the Giants in there. I'm saying no to the Ravens. And then it just comes down to Bears, 49ers, or Eagles. And I really think it's Bears or 49ers. I mean, the Eagles, it's so hard.
Yeah, Eagles are out. Eagles are out to me because, again, AJ Brown could be on the move here.
Yeah.
Again, it's like a match of quality and quantity here. The 49ers do have a lot of quantity and diversity, and they should get more. The Bears definitely have that. I mean, when you look at where Odunze and Burden are ranked, as well as Loveland, and the upside of the running backs with Williams, I think they have to be in. So it really comes down to the 49ers or Eagles. And again, it's pretty close between those two teams.
Oh, no, they don't get it. If the Bears are getting in, we have our top 8. And the 49ers don't get in.
All right. I don't know. Can you
I think it's completely fair for the Bears because of the injury to Kittle, him getting older, the age of CMC, the issues of Ricky Pearsall, the age of Mike Evans, and that's their big acquisition here. Trent Williams might even be traded, right? So I'm definitely fine with going with the Bears. So we have our top 8. So Rams, Lions, Cowboys, Bengals, Chargers, Bills, Giants, and the Bears. We are going to go down to the Final Four and our official winner of the tournament right after a quick break.
What if sports were traded like markets? Now you can put your sports IQ to work in real time with Robinhood prediction markets. It's not you against the house. It's you participating in a live market. You can buy or sell your positions live all game long. Use your sports knowledge in the moments that matter. Robinhood prediction markets changes the game. It's people moving the action. So when momentum shifts, you can move with it. I always knew the game, but I never had a dynamic way to apply that knowledge. Now I can actually take part live in a market powered by people. You're no longer just a spectator. Play by play. You decide. Trade every play with Robinhood. Now available across the U.S. Download the Robinhood app now to begin. Futures and cleared swaps trading involves significant risks and is not appropriate for everyone. Event contracts are offered by Robinhood Derivatives LLC, registered futures commission merchant and swap firm. All right, here we go. So, again, this is hard, man. Hard work. I mean, all the people that give the committee a hard time and coming up with the tournament teams, this is hard just to come down with these teams. So now we're going to whittle these down to a Final Four of offense. So, Michelle, make your first Final Four selection of our Final 8.
Yeah, I think we can make our own Final Fours here. So they could be different, have a little fun here. I will say the first two that should not be a surprise, and I'm sure you have them too. It's the Lions and the Rams. They're just stacked at every single position. And yeah, Jared Goff and Matthew Stafford are not the biggest fantasy producers on their own. I mean, Stafford was this last year, but they can get it done enough and they know how to get the ball to their playmakers. So Lions and Rams, they're in the Final Four.
Yeah, I do like those being locked in. I mean, I know the Rams are missing a tight end, but that could be a little bit bigger of a factor as we go forward with them if Colby Parkinson steps up. But they do have, obviously, the elite receivers, a very reliable running back, and a quarterback that still could have some back-end starting juice than Jared Goff, Sam Laporta, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, and Jahmyr Gibbs. They actually might be the top team overall if Sam Laporta has a bounce-back season. They really do not have a lot there in terms of the offensive skill position. So now it gets interesting, right? I can see why you would want to sell some other teams, but I think the Cowboys have to be in there. Now, it really comes down to Jake Ferguson. Is he going to be the same factor at some point? But you have CeeDee Lamb, you have George Pickens, Javonte Williams, Dak Prescott. This offense with Brian Schottenheimer really responded. So I think they have the most draftable assets overall that you would feel good about in an offense that could really explode if Pickens and Lamb are there all season long. So it's a little compressed with the Rams and Cowboys, but they definitely have a core four that can produce.
Yeah, I like that pick. I definitely do. I think they'll be a really great offense this upcoming year, but I'm going to go with a different team over them, and it is going to be the Chargers. I am just really excited about this offense. Now, they always wrote me back in, so maybe I'm just being silly here. But I do just think Marion Hampton can be, I think he has a ceiling to be a top 3 guy. I think Lad McConkey has a ceiling to be a top 12 guy. Again, I think Aronda Gadsden has a top 10 ceiling at tight end. And Justin Herbert, if you could just put it all together, just put it all together, use your legs, use your arm, just get those 30 touchdowns. Like, they can be a dynamic, beastly offense, right? So I'm going to go with the Chargers. I think they can get in there. So 2 LA teams for me and the Lions, and then one more team here that I will, I'll say, but who is your last team?
All right. I was debating this all, and I think I convinced myself in the previous segment when we were coming down here. It's the Chicago Bears. I mean, Ben Johnson and the track record, he had a big impact on this team in only one season. And you're going with a track record right there. And Mike McDaniel, they had a big offense, and he's got better talent overall than he ever had at any point when he was with Miami in terms of the quarterback and the running game and all these things that are falling into place. So that's a great argument there. And we know the Rams, Lions, and Cowboys, a lot of status quo, a lot of elite talent here. But the Bears are rising offense. Again, we talked about how everyone's high on Odunze and Burden and Loveland, and they've got backfield depth that you can look at. Now, Caleb Williams might be what it comes down to. Can he finish in the top 8, top 10, and really be strong in that area? I definitely think he can. So, again, Ben Johnson track record coming from those Lions. It's good to see another offense exploding. But, yeah, I think I have to go with the Bears there, Michelle. I mean, they're rising, and I want to go with the upside team there.
I think the Bears are totally fair. They definitely are a safer pick than mine. I'm going with the Giants. I'm going all the way with the Cinderella team. And I think the note I just said in the last, when we were last talking about the Giants making the Elite 8, is that they're already the 16th team in fantasy points last year in the league. And that's with Dart being a rookie quarterback, having a disaster of coaches there, right? And now they bring in coaches that we trust more, and John Harbaugh and Matt Nagy on a different end, but I still trust him more than what he had going there last year. And then him having Malik Nabers to throw to. We'll see if they add another wide receiver in the draft, but they did add speed in Calvin Austin and a reliable hands in Darnell Mooney. And they have young, exciting tight ends in Isaiah Likely and Theo Johnson, and exciting running back in Cam Skattebo. So I think this offense can be a top 4 offense next year. It's a sleeper pick for sure, but I'm going to go with it. Now, who's going to win the entire tournament? Vinny, I think there's a clear answer here, but do we have the same?
I'm not sure if we have the same, but in terms of reality, I know what the clear answer is. It's the Rams, but
I was going with the Lions.
Well, yeah, reality, the answer is the Rams. Like, who do I feel is going to win the Super Bowl? If we're going to play with who cuts down the nets, who tears down the goalposts. Reality, they have the offense to win the Super Bowl with the upgrades they made on defense. But in fantasy, because we're playing a fantasy tournament, it's the Detroit Lions. They're just too loaded still, and I think changing offense coordinators to Drew Petzing is what they need. Look, sometimes the experiment, it doesn't work out. It's very hard to replace Ben Johnson. They learned that last year. So they're hoping that Drew Petzing can have that effect here. So to me, I think what puts them over the top is the fact that you have the 2 wide receivers, the tight end, and the explosive running back, all there that you trust, and the quarterback, they can bring it all together. So, yeah, Rams, Lions, whatever. That's still the team. After all these years, after that Jared Goff, Matthew Stafford trade, I can't believe it's still going on, but that's where we're at. I mean, they're the blue bloods here of offense, and they deserve to be on top. So I love it. It's a good matchup. Rams, Lions. It could end up being the NFC Championship game. Who knows?
But I would love that. See, I think the Lions would be better for fantasy than real life, but for fantasy, they just been too consistent. I mean, last year you were just saying like they disappointed with the play caller last year without Ben Johnson. They're still the number 2 fantasy offense last year, behind only the Rams. But the Rams and Matthew Stafford have been inconsistent, and with injuries to Stafford and all that, so that's why I'd put the Lions. They have been a top 2, either 1 or 2 fantasy offense in each of the last 4 years. Perfect. And
Yeah.
They're not losing those pieces, and you get Jahmyr Gibbs to completely own this backfield now. We are very excited about that. So the Lions will be our winners of March Madness 2026. I want to thank you all for tuning in today to Locked On Fantasy Football. We will be back with you tomorrow. Make sure you subscribe and follow Locked On Fantasy Football so you get all the latest episodes. If you never miss an episode, the Everydayer Club is built for you. Get Locked On Fantasy Football ad-free, plus members-only Discord access and more. Head to lockedonfantasyfootball.supercast.com to join the club, and you get your first month for free with promo code MARCH. And then for those of you on video, we send you off to your first ever 24/7 National NBA YouTube channel. On audio, make sure you make your second listen of the day. Locked On NFL Draft. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Bye, y'all.